Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We are in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is doing a repeated summary of Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Now he's come to the last form of a detailed summary of Jnana Yoga. To quickly recap, what is Jnana Yoga? Jnana Yoga is a sadhana consisting of three aspects. First is Shravanam. For more than a year, almost a year now, online, we have been systematically and consistently listening to Vedantic scriptures. Now, when you listen with Shraddha, that this is gospel truth, this is Shravanam. And if we have all the basic qualifications and a good amount of sadhana chatustaya, Shravanam alone is enough. But there is a problem because of our mind. Whenever knowledge is given, knowledge comes with doubts. And if there is a knowledge plus doubt, we are not able to digest it. We are not able to accept it. We are not able to assimilate it. The doubts have to be cleared either through satsang or through continued listening to satsang, where the doubts have a chance to get it cleared. So unless the doubts are cleared, that is the process of mananam. Finally, there is a very important sadhana called Nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam takes months to years. This is the longest period of time required for any sadhana is Nididhyasanam. The teacher has told the truth. In the scriptures, we learn the truth. We learn the truth of not about cars, not about the stock market. We learn the truth about our nature. All the scriptures are taking about that I am Nityaha, Shuddhaha, Buddhaha, Muktaha, Shivoham, Shivoham. Now, this is extremely difficult to digest because it is not part of our experience. That is where we need Shraddha to know that I am not ordinary and that I am extraordinary. So, the Nididhyasanam over a period of time, that's what we will discuss in these verses. So, verse 51, Colonel Vijayan, please.
Good evening, sir. Hari Om. In chapter 18, Lord Krishna summarizes Jnana Yoga twice. That is from verses 13 to 17, and then from verse 50 to 55. Sravanam and Mananam are highlighted in verse from 13 to 17, while Nididhyasanam is emphasized in verses 50 to 55. Nididhyasanam is not about acquiring knowledge, but assimilating the knowledge acquired during Shravanam. It is like stirring the sugar already added to the cup of coffee. For Nididhyasanam, it is the mind that has to dwell on the teaching, and this can be done in two forms. One is regular listening or reading the scriptures regularly, writing, discussing about the Vedantic knowledge, or teaching. Here the position adopted by the body is not important. In the second form, posture is important for Nididhyasanam. One has to adopt an appropriate body posture to help support the mind. The Patanjali Yoga Sutra helps us to achieve this. When this form of Nididhyasanam is practiced, it is called Samadhi Abhyasa. This form of Nididhyasanam gives due importance to asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. A person in samadhi is totally absorbed in Aham Brahmasmi or the teachings acquired during Shravanam. Verses 51 to 53 spells out the steps for Nididhyasanam or Samadhi Adhyasa. The verse goes, Buddhya Vishuddhyaya Yukto Vidya Atmanam Niyamya Cha Adin Visayam Satyaktva Raga Dveshesu Yudasya Cha. Now, in this verse, Lord Krishna talks about 4 stages of Nididhyasana. The first stage is Buddhya Vishuddhyaya Yuktaha. Yuktaha means endowed with. Buddhi Vishuddhyaya, a clear intellect. Now, a clear intellect means a person has got a knowledge, Vedantic teaching without any doubt. It's a doubt-free knowledge on Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, Bandhana, Moksha, and Sadhana. It's a clear understanding of the Panchakoshas, the Avastatrayam, the Nivritta Karanam, the Upadana Karanam, and all this. It is a total assimilation of Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. Now the second step is Dritya Atmanam Niyamya Cha. Niyamya means having restrained. Here the word Atmanam means mind and Dritya is a will. So by a strong will, restrain the mind. It's very common to have the mind wandering, and it wanders and anchors on to values it finds very important at that point of time. Swamiji gives an example of a person chanting the Vishnu Sahasranama orally and mechanically while his mind is still in the office problems. What one should do is make Vedantic teaching as the most important for at least that period of duration of meditation. The next step is Sabdim Visayam Satyatvaha. Sabdim, Visayam Sabdim means sense objects like sound. Tyaktva means having renounced. Turn away the sense organs from the sense objects of Sabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, and Gandha. And the last step is Raga Desha Vidyasya Cha. Vidyasya Cha means should give up or cast aside Raga Desha. And this would have been already practiced in the Karma Yoga. Hence, to summarize, endowed with a clear intellect and having restrained the mind by will, having renounced the sense objects like sound, etc., one should give up likes and dislikes. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you, Colonel Vijayan, for a nice explanation, especially about giving up likes and dislikes. Jyoti, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vivikta sevi lagvashi yatvaka kaya manasaha dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashritaha. The word meaning: living in solitude, eating in moderation, regulating speech, body and mind, always engaged in meditation, resorting to dispassion. This verse refreshes the 6th chapter, the Bahirangya and Antarangya Sadhana. It states, reveling in oneself in isolation is a training, a prerequisite of meditation. The next step is lagvashi, that is eating. Eating only to sustain oneself. Swami Anubhavananda ji advises a very simple technique by stating that of 100% of our total hunger, eat only 50% of what you're actually hungry, consume 25% water, and leave 25% for ventilation. We even consume through our sense organs, so be watchful always. The next step is Yat Vaka Kaya Manasaha. Vani Kaya Manasaha. Vani should be Satyam, Priyam, Hitam, and speak only when required. Manasa Tapasya is Saumitvam, Maunam, and Atmanigraha. Swami Paramanantha ji mentions Yat Vaka Kaya Manasaha is withdrawing from the external world automatically uplifts us to dhyana and yoga, which is the next step. Thus, become a sannyasi during meditation, dropping all the incidental worldly relations and invoke three eternal relations with Ishvara, Guru, and Shastram. Meditation shouldn't be done, but it should happen. And this technique is explained by being 100% present in the very moment only, effortlessly, only expressing happiness through us always. This is living in Dhyanam, which is Nityam. I am 24/7 and I know that. Thus, summarizing, gradually withdrawing from the worldly objects, going back from Annamay to Pranamay Kosha to Manomay Kosha to Vijnanmay Kosha, and finally to the real ultimate conviction of Sat Chit Ananda. Hari Om, sir.
Thank you, Jyoti, for a brief and a very clear explanation of your allotted verse. Dr. Asha Naik, please.
Good evening, sir. Sir, from 58th to 55 verse, already Chetna madam had explained, and again today you have explained. Still, I'm going to explain because this is like a table, so everybody should know. This is Jnana Yoga Sadhana from 55 to 50 to 55. That is 3 stages. One is Shravana, which you have already told, listening. Another is second is Manana. Manana is you have no doubts, conviction. And third is Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana is internalization and assimilation of wisdom, which is extremely important, and it helps like how the digested food only will help, not just by eating, but digestion has to happen. Therefore, even though receiving the teaching is important, the assimilation of the teaching is equally important, perhaps more important. The primary sadhana of assimilation is dwelling upon the teaching as often as possible and also leading an alert life to make sure that my way of life and the teaching are very close. There is no big divide between what I know and what I am. Talking of Vedanta and doing all a karma, that is not at all acceptable. So I have to constantly monitor my thought, word, and deed and make sure that there is no gap between what I know and what I am. So the verse goes like this. Ahankaram balam darpam krodham parigraham vimuchya nirmamam shanta brahma bhuvaya kalpate. So what here he says is, during the practice of Vedantic meditation, several emotional disturbance happen. And how do you remove? These are asuri sampatas, and we need to weed them off. Like our mind is like a garden, and from that, these are unhealthy pattern of thinking which disturb and which has to go off. So ahankara. Ahankara means anatma abhimana, the strong identification with body. Vedantic students should never have encouraged that because it is all from Pancha Mahabhuta we have come, and it is temporary gift, and we are going back to again Pancha Mahabhuta. So we should, this Dehatma Atma, we should never take it. Balam. Balam is power in either organization, institution, or family. We should work on that, and we should never have power holding on it. Darpam. Darpam means arrogance. If how many degrees I have got, how many awards I have got, I'm starting from scratch and I became millionaire. My next is Kama and Krodha. Kama and Krodha, wherever it is, it comes together. Kama is dwelling on our desires, and we should not dwell on them. Krodha is more the Kama, more Krodha. And I get irritable with everybody and start shouting. So we have to work on both Kama and Krodha. Parigraham. Parigraham means possession. More possessions, more distractions. So we have to reduce our possession. That is called aparigraha. But after reducing even the small things, we start owning and have attachment. That also should not be. That is called nirmama. So all, and I am just using it. The next word is vimuchya nirmama shanta. If a person practices this Vedanta meditation for length of time, then Brahma Bhuya Kalpate. He learns to disidentify from his superficial personality called Ahankara. Ahankara is the inferior I, the lower I, changing I, consisting of physical, body, mind, and conclave. And this person leaves to disidentify from this finite I and learns to identify from the higher I, that is Chaitanya Tattvam, the conscious principle. And we have to remember this because this is the only important thing. When you practice meditation, one mistake we do, we say conscious, that is third person single. So that is not true. We always say that body mind complex is a first person. That is the mistake we do. So what I have to do is, I am not part and product and property of the body. I am an independent formless consciousness which pervades and enlivens the body. As I am not limited by the boundaries of the body, and I continue to survive even after I fall of the body, surviving in through the all other innumerable bodies. Thus, I space like pervading, formless, all accommodating conscious principle. This I have to drill it into my mind until it becomes spontaneous to me. Of course, when I transact with the world, I should not be saying that. Otherwise, I look like a fool. The moment I learn to identify with formless consciousness of principle, I can very well boldly claim Aham Brahmasmi. Until it comes spontaneously, it is wrong. So I have to learn to disidentify from the body, and it has to come natural. Then only I will identify with the conscious. That is Aham Brahmasmi. I become Brahman. I don't become Brahman, but I own up that I am conscious, which is Brahman standpoint. I do not have boundaries. The difficulty is owning up, but it is, I'm saying that I am all pervading. It is not confusion. But because if I say I'm conscious, then it is not aberration because I am Aham. Aham Brahmasmi. Therefore, Brahman Bhuvai. Bhuvai means Bhava. So Brahman Bhuvai means Brahma Bhava. Means Brahma Aikyam. Brahma Aikyam means Brahman. So Nididhyasnam is alone only we have to have. Shravanam is incomplete unless you do Nididhyasnam. Why it is important? Because so many minutes, hours, and days we are identified with boundaries, our bodies. It is from the decades and janmas. And then we have entrenched deep into our mind. That's why it is difficult. So only way in 6th chapter it is here. Tirelessly we have to practice Nididhyasana. Shankaracharya says one step further, says stop everything, drop everything and do Nididhyasana. You don't have to do that, but at least you start dwelling on the teaching. This is the message. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Asha Naik, for a very high-spirited and a very nice explanation of your verse.
Yeah.
Go to the next speaker. That will be Mr. Bhaskar. Bhaskar, please.
Hari Om. Gurubhyo Namaha. Yours goes like this. Brahma Bhuta Prasanna.
Not audible, Bhaskar.
Not audible, sir.
Not very clear.
Now, sir. Now, sir. No.
Not yet. There's some audio issues.
I'll come back later, sir. Then.
Now it's good. It is good now. Please go ahead.
Gurubhyo Namaha. The verse goes like this. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. No, sir? Yeah. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. Na sochati na kamshati sans labate param. The verbatim goes like this. Brahma Bhuta, the one who has become or recognized oneself as Brahman. Prasannatma, one whose mind is cheerful. Na sochati, does not grieve. Na kankshati, does not long for anything. Sarvesu bhutesu sama, the one for whom all beings are the same as himself. Param bhaktam, mad bhaktim, the highest devotion to me, labate, gains. First, let me answer the question of the evolution of bhakta into Brahma Bhuta. When a seeker develops a supreme devotion, Bhakti, towards Ishvara, his involvement in the material world decreases and makes his mind pure and focused, similar to a sannyasi, assiduously following the life of Jnana Nishtha as presented or as prescribed by Lord Krishna. Now, the question, how does pure devotee assess that he has become Brahma Bhuta? That supreme state is when a seeker sees for himself, for instance, stone and diamonds of equal value. Further, Sri Krishna exemplifies the virtue of supreme bliss, Prasannatma, which is always a cheerful and happy mind. But as Vedantins, we make a giant leap in thought and perception. Therefore, for us to assimilate Prasannatma is not just a happy state, but an emphatic I am happiness itself, which evokes a paradigm shift. These accomplishments are possible if a seeker has gone through a life of karma yoga and sadhana of contemplation. This doesn't happen spontaneously or instantly, or by sheer will, but sometimes something that grows on a person over a period of time through prayerful life and takes care of one's psychological problems. This seeker does not come to grief, na sochati, either because of lack of resources or because of limitations of body, mind, and senses. The seeker accepts things as it is, a sthita prajna attitude. He remains unperturbed, be it body or lack of money or any other ailments. Having disregard to this approach, the seeker doesn't regret later in his life. With these acquired parameters, the seeker has no sense of deficiency. Rather, he seeks a life of contentment. He does not have any longing. Na kankshati. He understands that what makes him happy makes others happy, and equally with sorrow state. This disposition of a person who is not self-centered has a clear disposition of universal order. If one lacks upon all other beings as himself, he therefore is free from the world of raga dvesha. This person, Bhagavan says, is the highest devotion to me. Mad bhaktim labate haram. With this knowledge of hara bhakti and jnana nishtam, the ahankara dissolves into Ishvara, like a drop of water falling into an ocean. Ultimately, all that the seeker needs to do is to see oneness between one pure self and Ishvara pure self, distinct from the effects of Maya. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bhaskar. Although there were a lot of internet issues, your voice was intermittently coming and going. A very important verse. If you will see Swami Anubhavanandaji's website, he has put that this verse is one that reflects his outlook to life, how a jnani should be. We'll go to the next speaker. That will be Nilima. Nilima, please.
Good day. Lord Krishna in this chapter summarizes Karma Yoga 3 times and Jnana Yoga 2 times. First time, Lord summarized Jnana Yoga from 13th to 17th verse in this chapter, wherein Shravanam was highlighted. Now, second time from verse 50 to 55, we get to see the second summary of Jnana Yoga, emphasizing more on Nididhyasana. the primary purpose of Nididhyasana by our speakers we have seen is to assimilate the knowledge, but it's not for acquiring the knowledge or validating the knowledge. In Nididhyasana, mind dwells upon the teachings of Acharya received during Shravanam. Let us chant the verse. Bhaktya mamabhijanati yavanyaschasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato jnatva vishate tadanantaram. Meaning, by devotion, one knows me in essence, what and who I am. He enters immediately in me. In this verse 55, Lord summarizes Nididhyasanam topic. This is consolidating verse. Lord says Arjuna that through bhakti, by the practice of this Nididhyasanam, Vedantic meditation, Mam Abhijanati, a person who got Ishvara Jnana Nishta, who understood Lord in his true essence. Yavan Yachasmi Tattvataha, who assimilated the knowledge of God both in the lower Apara Prakriti, Saguna Ishvara, and higher Para Prakriti, Nirguna Ishvara. Tato Mam Tattvato Gnatva, having known Lord's supreme nature, Tadanantaram, immediately Vishate, enters or merges in me. In relative field, microcosm in this Bhagavan and Bhakta are not one. But at the absolute level, there is no microcosm or macrocosm. There is only Nirguna Chaitanyam. Ma Vishate. Merging into the Lord here, it means dropping the notion of division caused by the ignorance. Once the individual transcends time and space in Nididhyasana, he enters into God's consciousness. Just like dreamer cannot retain his own individuality when he enters the waking state, he himself becomes the waker. Similarly, when the ego enters the God's consciousness, the individuality, he cannot retain itself. Individuality ends and he rediscovers, awakens to infinite Brahmahood, the state of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, this words, what is suggesting is, by this true knowledge alone liberation is attained, and true knowledge is obtained by faithful devotion to the Lord. Those who take refuge in the Lord alone attains the eternal liberation. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you, Nilima. That was a very nice explanation. We come, I think, to the final verse for today. Pallavi, please.
Hari Gurubhyo Namaha. Sarva karmani api sadah kurvano madvyapashrayah mat prasadapano nitti shashvatam padam varvayam. In this shlok, Krishna is saying, doing all actions depending on me, one attains the eternal and changeless goal by my grace. Some seekers here of Jnana Yoga topic emphasize on Nididhyasana and feel that all these activities are beyond their reach and the process is very complex and difficult to practice. This inferiority complex is so complex that Krishna might have found Arjuna's facial expressions as such. Thus, from verse number 56 to 62, Krishna, out of compassion, comes down to Karma Yoga again with a shift. Remember, Krishna has already talked about Karma Yoga in verse number 41 to 49. He emphasized Swadharma Karma. In this shlokas, Krishna is highlighting the attitude of Bhakta. The individual effort and the grace of Lord are like the two wings of a bird. Just as a bird can fly only with the help of both wings, similarly, spiritual growth requires not only our effort, but also Ishvara Anugraha. Swami Dayanand repeatedly says, Karma Yoga does not exist without devotion to God. It is not secular. It involves some concept of Ishvara as the creator of the world, the ultimate truth of the creation with or without a form. This is Ishvara Bhakti or Ishtadevta Bhakti. At this time of Karma Yoga, the yogi's attitude should be twofold. One is Ishvara Arpana Bhavana and the other one is Prasada Bhavana. That is, every contribution of mine, whatever I do, I take it as an Arpanam to the Lord. And then whatever be the consequences, favorable, unfavorable, neutral, or whatever it is, I take it as Prasada. This Ishvara Prasada Bhavana and Karma Phalam Prasada Bhavana is extremely important. How do you reap Ishvara Anugraha? Krishna says, it is by taking shelter or surrendering onto the Lord. Thus, Sharanagati or Ishvara Bhakti is an integral part of Karma Yoga. And how does he do that? Krishna explains. Mad Vyaparshaya. The first meaning is take shelter in me and ever depend on me. Vyaparshaya, shelter. Saranam, refuge, meaning my ultimate source of strength and security is God alone. Bhagwan will take care of me, though he may not come directly. Through someone or the other, he will take care of me. Learn to seek support from Ishvara, as Ishvara's grace is always there. If Ishvara's grace is not there, nobody will be there as well. Remember Dashratha's example? He has 4 children, all gems, and ultimately he had to die with nobody around him. Therefore, train your mind to draw strength from Ishvara, and this is called Mad Vyapasya. For example, invoke the Ishta Devata who is residing in the heart at all the time. Take refuge in the idea that Lord is in my heart all the time. You intelligently can call him outside for the sake of puja, and then after the puja is over, you put him back in the heart. This is the meaning of Mad Vyapashya. There is also another higher meaning as well. Shastra Vapshaya, taking shelter in Bhagwan's teaching, which is in the form of Vedas, Gitas, Upanishads, and so on. Take shelter in the Gita by following the lifestyle prescribed. Sarva Karman Api Kurvanam. Perform all the actions do, whether it is worldly actions or religious actions, Laukik Karma or Vedic Karma. You can do all those actions, but offer all of them as a Naivedyam, oblation to the Lord. Swa Karmana Tam Abhyarcha Siddham Vindhati Manava. Initially, you offer flowers at the time of puja, but later, as you evolve, every action is an offering. For example, taking refuge in a doctor means whatever instruction he gives for my physical well-being, I should follow. What is the use of taking refuge in a doctor and violating every instruction he gives? Similarly, taking refuge in God also means taking refuge in God's teaching as well. Mat Prasada, by my grace and receiving every consequence as Ishwar Prasada, gift from the Lord, Apnoti, you will certainly attain your goal of Padam Apnoti. Padam here means Moksha Padam, the goal of liberation, or Shashvatam Padam, which is eternal, and also Abhayam Padam, which is non-decaying. You will attain this eternal, non-decaying, permanent goal of moksha. Now, by following Karma Yoga regularly, will we attain moksha automatically? Krishna says no. We will attain moksha gradually by going through the various stages: purity of mind, creating ideal condition for Vedanta Shravana, thereafter attending Jnanam, and thereafter attainment of moksha. Chitta Shuddhi, Guru Prapti, Sarvana Prapti, Jnana Prapti, Dwara we will attain moksha. Therefore, start Karma Yoga properly. Hari Om.
Thank you, Pallavi. That was a nice and a complete explanation of this verse about how through Karma Yoga you can attain to the Lord. We come to the quiz now. We are now in the quiz of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So what we will do as usual, look into the verse and see how by looking into the verse, how it will give you a meaning. If Dr. Halya is there, can you read this verse for us?
Yes, sir. Namaste. Suhrin mitrar yudasena madhyastha dveshya bandhushu statushvapi cha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate.
All right, open. What is this verse trying to say?
For a dhyana yogi, he considers his well-wishers, mediators, and everybody alike. He has sama buddhi. He is sthita prajna.
All right, good. Somebody else wants to add a little more to it. What is the important thing about this samabuddhi vishishyate?
He has only Atma Darshana. He doesn't see the Anatma.
All
So
right.
since the Atma is the same in everybody.
All right. Now we are now talking about meditation, and in meditation, which is the central, we are talking about the antaranga sadhana and bahiranga sadhana. That means what are the preparations we should do before we sit to meditation. When we sit to meditation, your mind, when there are no other thoughts, usually what thoughts come? Those whom you don't like, those who have hurt you, those who have insulted you, they come to our mind here. So you will see. Silence that. Can you make out who's that? All right. So what we need to do is we need to see, like, so many things are there. Someone has to explain all this. I will ask Ahalya only as we go into the verse. There is Mitra, and next to it there is Ari. Ari is enemy. And in the next line you have Dvesha, those people who desire negative things for you, those who hate you. And if you have someone whom you hate, or people, more important, that you hate, those people come to your mind, and therefore we cannot sit to meditate. So this is a very, poetically nice verse where so many things have been put into one. Ahalya, if you can read the word meaning.
Samabuddhihi. Samabuddhihi is he whose mind is the same. Suhrid. Suhrid with regard to well-wishers. Mitra, friends. Ari, enemies. Udasina, neutral. Madhyastha, mediators. Dveshya, hateful ones. Bandhushu, relations. Sadhushu, the righteous. Cha api papeshu, and even the unrighteous. Vishishyate, excels.
Word meaning.
Seeing everyone equally, samadarshanam. He whose mind is the same with regard to well-wishers, friends, enemies, neutrals, mediators, hateful ones, relations, the righteous and even the unrighteous excels.
Continue.
The Jnani not only has equal attitude towards all, this attitude towards the living beings is more difficult. It is more difficult because we have expectations from the other human beings. We easily develop attachments, aversions, lust, anger, etc. when we move among the other people. The Jnani sees the following wide range of people equally. Suhrida, good people who are well-wishers of everyone. His or her very nature is to help anyone in need unconditionally. Mitra, a friend who helps a person who is known to him. He may not help someone else. Therefore, he is a conditional helper. Ari, an enemy who does harm to me behind my back. Udasena, an indifferent person who is neither interested in one's own welfare nor one's downfall. When there is a problem or argument between two people, he does not interfere or help. Madhyastha, a mediator who is interested in the welfare of both conflicting parties, opposite of Udasina. Dveshya, one who is hateful and the one provokes a hatred in the other. While Ari causes harm behind one's back, Dveshya causes harm directly. Bandhu, a relative. Sadhu, a noble person who follows dharma in general. He is a dharmika purushaha. The difference between Suhrida and Sadhu is that the latter, whether he helps or not, leads a righteous life. I repeat, the difference between Suhrida and Sadhu is that the latter, whether he helps or not, leads a righteous life. Papa, the one who leads an unrighteous life, a dharmika purusha.
Now, what I will just go back to the verse. So if you look at the verse, so the first word is well-wisher. Mitra means friend. Ari, you should see there, is enemy. Udasina, indifferent. You know, who Madhyastha. Madhyastha is the one who's mediator, who tries to help. And Dvesha, one who hates. Bandhu, a close relative. Sadhu. So you will see how Vyasacharya is able to bring everything and in the particular meter to bring all this in this one particular verse. With that, we'll go to the next verse and just look at the verse and see how it makes. This is a very straightforward verse. Yukta ahara viharasya. Go ahead, Ahalya.
Yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapnavabhodasya yogo bhavati dukkha.
Fairly straightforward. Anybody can jump in to explain?
Moderation in eating,
Good.
moderation in recreation,
Yeah.
and sleeping. These people achieve dhyana yoga more easily because of the fewer distractions
Very good.
of excessive.
What is this dukkha ha?
Takes away the dukkha.
Yeah, it is a killer or destroys dukkha. That means what is yogo bhavati?
Dhyana yoga becomes.
That's right. It is jnana yoga. So meditation becomes possible, and through meditation there is destruction of sorrow. Later on, you will hear about atyantika sukham and all forms of joy that come through meditation. So here Vyasacharya is giving us yukta ahara viharasya. Ahara means diet, vihara is recreation. Yukta chetasya karmasu, moderation in your karma.
Work.
Yukta swapna. Swapna here does not mean dream, but sleep. That means moderation both. Don't sleep too much. Don't avoid sleep also. And if these are the antaranga, bahiranga procedures that will help you to become meditative. Fairly straightforward, but still read as Ahalya.
Yogaha bhavati, dhyana yoga becomes dukkha, the destroyer of sorrow. Yuktahara viharasya, for one who is moderate in eating and recreation. Yukta swapnava bhodasya, who is moderate in sleeping and waking. Yukta cheshtasya, and who is moderately engaged, karmasu, in action. Dhyana yoga becomes the destroyer of sorrow for one who is moderate in eating and recreation, who is moderate in sleeping and waking, and who is moderately engaged in actions. Moderation in eating, sleeping, and entertainment or recreation. One should be moderate in activities also, work life. One must dedicate some time for satsanga so that one is always reminded of the real goal in life. For this person of moderation, meditation will be the destroyer of sorrow and will become a source of peace.
With that, go to the next verse. Yada viniyatam chittam atmaneva vishishyate nispraha sarva karma karmebhyo kamebhyo yukta iti uchyate tada. Anybody would like to tell us?
When the mind is controlled and when the mind is totally focused in Atman, and when it is free from all the desires towards objects, such a person is called yogi.
Okay, good. Anybody would like to add something to it?
Sir,
Dr. Sundar.
Actually, very few verses deal with the Dhyana Swarupam.
Yeah.
This is one of them.
Yeah.
Swarupam comprises of 3 steps, which is Dharanam, Dhyanam, and then Samadhi. So the first and third line talk about Dharanam, which is I have to take my mind away from Anatma, which is away from Vijatiya Pratyayaya Pravaha. Nispraha Sarva Kamebhya. So this is to take my mind away from, reduce the desires away from the external sense objects. And Yada Vinayatam Chittam is actually Dhyanam. Chittam here is the mind. And Vinayatam is bringing the mind to the Atma. Atmaneva Avatishtate. So now this is further continuing Dhyanam. One then abides in the Atma. Yukta refers to the culmination, which is a person which has attained to Samadhi.
Very good. Good, Sundar. Ahalya, please read.
Yada, when Viniyatam Chittam, the restrained mind, Avatishtate, abides, Atmani Eva, in the Atma itself, Tada, then, Nisprihaha, who is detached, Sarva Karmebhyaha, from all the sense objects, Iti Uchyate Yuktaha. He is called Yuktaha or a yogi. When the restrained mind abides in the Atma itself, then the meditator who is detached from all sense objects is called a yogi. In Atma Dhyana, the mind is withdrawn from the external objects. All the thoughts connected with Anatma are disconnected. Anatma consists of 3 things: the world, one's body, and one's mind. If these thoughts are removed, it is called Chittam Viniyatam. Viniyatam means restrained. Withdrawal from the external world is accomplished by developing detachment to Anatma. The thoughts are drawn towards the object of attachment because of feelings of attachment or aversion, raga dvesha. Meditation will be ineffective without this detachment. When the mind is occupied with the objective world, it is not available for Atma Dhyana.
With this background, let us go and look at the verse again. So, Yada Viniyatam Chittam. Atman eva avavishtate. Now here the mind has to dwell onto the Atma. So the whole process of Nididhyasanam is training our mind to dwell into the Atma. So according to Vedantic meditation, Nididhyasanam is not a state which is free from all thoughts, but it is a state where you have one thought or similar thoughts. And what are the all similar thoughts relating to Atma? For example, Nityaha, Shuddhaha, Buddhaha, Muktaha, Shivoham, Shivoham, Shivaswarupaha. So the mind should entertain such thoughts. And to entertain such thoughts, we have to Viniyatam Chittam. That means the mind should be free from all Anatma related thoughts. And that is the only way you will be able to attain to it. So,
just one interruption, please. Dharana and Dhyanam.
Yeah.
What is the difference between Dharana and Dhyanam? Difficult to understand, but Swamiji gives the example of a person trying to take a photograph. Dharanam is focusing on an object, like what aspect that you want to meditate upon. That is dharanam. Dhyanam is trying to fix the mind on it. After focusing the object, before clicking, in that interval period, the object should not move. So dhyanam is fixing. What happens in samadhi? The effort of fixing is not there. It becomes effortless. That is the difference between dhyanam and samadhi.
If I can give the same example once again. Now, supposing you are taking a photograph of somebody. And when you're taking a photograph, you don't want yourself to move. That person is still. You want to take a good photograph. So all your attention is on the object that you want to take a picture of. And therefore, you are in dharana. So you are absolutely still. Your hands are still. You're trying to take a picture of that. Now, at this moment, if you can move from the object of your interest to the subject, you who's taking a photograph, now you come to dhyana. So the whole of dhyana is to move from dharana. Dharana, the attention is on the object. In dhyana, the attention is on the subject. And once the attention on the subject becomes effortless, then it becomes samadhi. Samadhi has got many derivations. Samadhi, di is intellect. The intellect is in even state. Or another method is samadhi. Adi means the Lord. One becomes together with the Lord. So you can see dharana, dhyana, samadhi through various examples. All right, another very beautiful verse. Ahalya, please read this for me.
Yatroparamate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyannatmani tushyati.
Please, anybody?
When a yogi has conquered his mind, he is in meditation with devotion to God.
Okay. Okay. Yatra chaiva atmanat atmanam. The atma comes twice there. What is that?
He has conquered the mind.
He has attained to atma through the mind. So one atma is the mind, the other is atma. Then pashyan atmani tushyati. What is tushyati here? You'll remember in the second chapter, prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata atmanevatmana tushyata. Tushyata is a sense of fulfillment. Reveling, a sense of reveling or rejoicing. Now, here the first word is yatra uparamate. What is that uparamate? Chittam.
Inner satisfaction.
Quietening the mind.
Yeah, it is quietening. Like you have uparama among all the sadhana chatustayana, uparama. Uparama is when you withdraw from everything outside. Yatro paratam uparame chittam. Niruddham is to quieten. Give me the meaning of the word yoga, yoga sevaya.
Through yoga abhyasa.
Through which yoga abhyasa? Through Ashtanga yoga abhyasa. Here it means Ashtanga yoga abhyasa. Yatra chaiva atmanatmanam. So you attain to the atma through the mind. So there are a lot of beautiful things there. Ahalya, please read word to word meaning.
Yatra, one should know that to be wherein chittam, the mind, niruddham, restraint, yoga sevaya, by the practice of meditation, uparamate, quietens, cha yatra eva, and wherein, pashyan, one perceives, atmanam, the atma, atmana, with the pure mind, tushyati, and rejoices, atmani, in the atma. One should know that to be in samadhi, wherein the mind, restrained by the practice of meditation, quietens, and wherein one perceives the Atma with the pure mind and rejoices in the Atma. Chittam Uparamanam, withdrawal of the mind. Tranquility is attained by withdrawing the mind from the worldly roles. Every role has a problem related to it, and therefore they must be discarded during meditation. By practicing the Ashtanga Yoga methods, the restrained mind remains calm and enjoys the inner silence. In Sanskrit, it is called Chitta Uparamanam, which is the total tranquility or relaxation of the mind. Atma Darshanam, cognition of Atma, silencing the mind is not the primary objective. It will only give temporary result. To achieve the benefits, one has to recollect the Vedantic teachings in the mind. One sees the Atma in his mind as revealed by the Guru and the Shastras. Therefore, without Vedanta Shravanam, Atma Dhyana is not possible. Atma resides in the mind as the witness of your thoughts. One identifies with Atma and witnesses the thoughts. Therefore, the second definition of Samadhi is Atma Darshanam.
So let us just look at the words. Yatro paramate chittam. Chittam here means the mind. Yat when uparamate. That means when the mind withdraws from everything anatma. Niruddham. Niruddham means quietening. Through yoga sevaya. Through all the entire Ashtanga yoga techniques. Yatra chaiva atmanam. That means when the mind is now trained to dwell into the Atma, that is again Nididhyasana. And what is Nididhyasana? The same thing. It is not a mind that is empty. Through Shravanam, you have learned that I am Nityaha, Shuddhaha, Buddhaha, Muktaha. And if that mind is dwelling on the Atma, then Pashyan Atmani Tushyati. We'll go into one more. If you can read this for me.
Sukhamatyantikam yattat buddhigrahyamatīndriyam veti yatra na chaivayam sthitas chalati tattvataha.
Anybody?
These are the 7 or 8 points Swami Param says which define Nirvikalpa Samadhi. 2 we have finished in the previous verse. This verse gives 2 more. One is Sukham Atyantikam. And it says this is through Buddhi here means that through Jnana Yoga, through Nididhyasanam, one has got Jnana Nishtha, and this Sukham is from that. Atindriyam is beyond what can be got through Vishayananda. So Sukham Atyantikam is the third definition of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Fourth is given in the third and fourth line. Veti means knowing Atma Swarupam, thus through Nididhyasanam. Sthithas na chalati tattvataha. So having attained Jnana Nishtha, one never wavers that state.
Very good, Dr. Sundar. So we have 2 more of the 7. The first is what is called Atyantika Sukham. Atyantika Sukham is like an infinite or tremendous amount of joy, which is beyond Vishayananda, which the Indriyas cannot comprehend. It is not something that the Indriyas can know, that kind of a joy. But this is possible through Buddhi Grahyam. That means it is comprehended through the it is because of your training of the intellect you will be able to attain to Atyantika Sukha. So there are two more definitions here of the type of joy or the type of experience that can come through Nididhyasanam. So Ahalya, please read.
Yatra Veti, one should know that to be in Samadhi, wherein one appreciates that Atyantikam Sukham, that limitless Ananda, yet Atindriyam, which is beyond sense organs, Buddhigrahyam, and which is grasped by the intellect, Cha eva stitaha, and remaining, in which Ayam na chalati, one does not slip, Tattvataha, from his true nature. One should know that to be in Samadhi, wherein one appreciates that limitless Ananda, which is beyond sense organs and which is grasped by the intellect, and remaining, in which one does not slip from his true nature. Atyantika Sukham, fulfillment. Atyantika Sukham means limitless Ananda. Ananda is different from experiential sense pleasures, which are finite in terms of time, place, and quality. If a person gets the greatest pleasure only in Samadhi, it is also limited sense pleasure. If he loses that pleasure when he comes out of Samadhi, then he does not have Ananda. It is Ananda born of knowledge, intellect, or wisdom, that one was Purna before Samadhi, during Samadhi, and after Samadhi. This is permanent because knowledge can never be displaced by time or experience. Tattvanishta, absorption in Atma. The one who remains in this absorption does not deviate into Anatma, cycling. This is Nishta. One will never go back to Anatma, even in the midst of intense worldly transactions. Tattva here means Atma. Thereafter, the life becomes a drama. He goes on to the green room to remind himself that he is an actor in the drama, Nididhyasanam. He goes there until it becomes natural to him and he does not forget his true nature. This is called Sahaja Samadhi. Being in the permanent state of Samadhi is Tattvanishta or Sthita Prajna.
We will do one more verse, may not be the sixth one. I will take you to the next one. Yeah, this is a beautiful verse. Please read this.
Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha.
These are the two verses which Swami Anubhavananda reflects his perspective of life. The previous one was the one that Dr. Bhaskar, that Mr. Bhaskar explained today. Open to anybody who wants to explain this verse. This is the benefit of Atma Jnanam. This is the... Yeah.
He sees equal to himself, that is, he sees Brahma Tattva in everybody, to Arjuna, whether it is Sukham or Dukkham. He is the best, he is the yogi.
Can you explain that word? Atmaupamyena.
Atmaupamyena. That is, he sees himself in everybody, or he sees Brahman in everyone.
Correct. And therefore, you are able to internalize the pain or the sorrow in everybody else. You know, this is a very high level of empathy, where it is not sympathy, but you feel the pain of another person, you feel the joy of another person. You will see how true these statements are in normal interaction. Supposing somebody gets something very good happens in somebody's life. You know, he earns he gets some award, or he is given a Nobel Prize, or he earns a lot of money, he gets a very important position. The human tendency is externally you will congratulate, but internally you'll say, you know, what a terrible fellow, he doesn't deserve this. So there is always a duality in our mind when you congratulate a person when he accomplishes something. On the other hand, if somebody has some tragic event in his life, somebody has become unwell, or something is serious in that family, you will go and sympathize, but internally there is a feeling, thank God it has not happened to me. You will always see a difference between the way you treat the person outside. Through Atma Jnanam, this is the key word, Atmau Pammena. That means you are able to see yourself in everybody. And Samam Pashyati Yo Arjuna, Sukham Vadiya Dukkham. This is a very great level of Atma Jnanam. Ahalya, please. And then
Arjuna, O Arjuna, Atmaupamyena, keeping himself as the standard, Sa Yogi, that yogi, Yaha Pashyati, who sees, Sukham va, pleasure, Yadi va Dukkham, and pain, Samam, alike, Sarvatra, in all, Mataha, is considered to be Paramaha, the greatest. O Arjuna, keeping himself as the standard, that yogi who sees pleasures and pain alike in all is considered to be the greatest. Krishna says, a jnani's mind expands to such an extent that he identifies with all the bodies as his own. Previously, he was identified with one body only. Now he knows that he is the same Atma that is behind all the bodies. Krishna says that because of this universal identification, a jnani cannot hurt anyone. Thus, the jnani becomes an embodiment of compassion, sympathy, and ahimsa. When someone feels pain, he also is capable of sensing that pain. When someone is in pain, he immediately and automatically goes to his rescue.
Okay, we'll conclude. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.